Hi, and welcome back to podcast number 3 of The Protection Gap. Today, we're going to cover loaded premiums. What to do if your premiums suddenly double with the customer on your protection advice. And I'm going to show you how to take this potentially tough conversation and make it nice and easy and turn it almost into a positive with the customer. And I'm going to show you how to manage expectations in advance and harness the psychological powers of scarcity principle and price anchoring to make your advice far more acceptable and palatable and desirable to your customer. Okay, first of all, carry out what I call a mini medical before you present your protection advice or before you even prepare your protection advice. Now, some places or some advisors do like to do a full underwriting questionnaire before presenting advice. And if it works for you, do that. However, I'm not really a fan of it because what you're doing is giving the customer a 13-page medical interrogation before they've even bought into their needs. This can put them off, especially if they've got something wrong with them, and you might find them cancelling appointments or just saying they don't want to discuss any further. So I don't like that particular method. However, a mini medical would involve asking some very basic questions which will help us enormously when we research our advice. Now, the questions I like to ask in this mini medical are smoker status, height and weight, the obvious ones, and then I follow it with this. Mr. Customer, is there anything in your medical history that may affect my research today? For example, anxiety, depression, diabetes, things like that. Now, these 3 questions are short and fast. And of course, they don't cover everything, but they will get the customer to open up and give us some of their obvious medical history. I then followed up with this. Okay, is there anything else in the last 2 years that has caused you to miss work through sickness or illness or injury? A nice simple question which will draw enough information out of the customer for us to carry out some decent research. Now, these 3 simple questions take about 2 minutes to complete and are much faster and less intrusive than a medical interrogation. Now, if any of the answers they give warrant further investigation, for example, they've got type 2 diabetes or their BMI is a concern to us, then at that point, carry out the full medical underwriting questions. We're going to need them to carry out our research. However, if their answers don't cause any alarm, then we can happily carry out our research. And as I said, it's taken a couple of minutes to find that information. Now, if they give us any answer that we know is going to cause their premiums to go up, I don't mean by £1, but I mean 25%, 50%, 100% loadings. When we give our advice, we still go ahead and get the customers to buy into their needs and their shortfalls. So they're keen to find out more or buy the product. But what you shouldn't do is give them the standard quote there and then. If you know the premiums are going to go up and their cover costing £29, don't tell them, well, the basic quote is £29, but it might go up. It's too late. You've already said the words £29. Now then, when you come back with a higher premium, £56, they've got £29 to compare it to. This is called negative price anchoring. You've said a low figure and then you give them a high figure. Once you do that, they compare it with a low figure and everything is way more expensive than they were expecting. So all you've got to do is say, look, I haven't got a quote for you at the moment because we've got to look into more detail because of the answers you give me in the medical question. But once I do, I'll get you back in, I'll go back through my advice again, and then I'll tell you the costs. By doing it that way, if you come back in with £56, for example, they've got no frame of reference to compare it to. So it's not higher or lower than anything. That is just the price. The next thing we're going to do is at that stage use scarcity principle to make the customer aware that the product is going to be quite difficult to source or place. And it's going to take you some work. Now that might sound like a negative, but it's not. Here's how it would sound. Okay, Mr. Customer, because you've answered to this, this, and this, obviously it's going to be more difficult to find you the right protection. But that's what my job is. That's why I'm fully independent. So what I'll do is I'll keep searching until I find a provider that will give you the cover you need. That's my promise to you. I won't stop looking until I find something for you. Right, that is scarcity principle. You're making the product far more desirable by saying it might be difficult to get. It's the same principle as if you go into an electrical store and they say, this TV is available at this cost. Once this one goes, you cannot get this model at this price again. that TV suddenly becomes more desirable to us because it's scarce. Now, when you do find a product and you're ready to present your quotes, we use scarcity principle once again. Let's say you searched 15 providers for IP and you only managed to find 2 that would offer terms based on the customer's medical answers. Emphasize that point. So look, I checked everywhere. At first, I didn't think I was going to get it. But after checking 15 places, luckily enough, I managed to get 2 that would give you cover. It was touch and go. Once again, that might sound dramatic, but that's what happened. And you're making it more desirable because they know they haven't got a multitude of choices. Okay, now we're ready to give the customer the quote. At this point, we use positive price anchoring, which is obviously the opposite to the negative price anchoring I told you to avoid earlier on. So let's stick with the same example. You checked 15 providers, you got 2 that came back and offered a quote and terms. Let's say one of those came in at £250 for IP with a massive load in, and the second one came in at £150 with less of a load in. Rather than just saying, good news, I've managed to find one and it's £150, what do you think? All you say is, based on those 2 I got, the first quote I got you was 250 quid to offer this cover. Alarm bells. Oh my God. Yeah, I know, but I didn't stop there. I kept checking and checked this out. I managed to find one, last attempt, at £150. I've saved you £100 a month. Suddenly, because of positive price anchoring, we've set a high figure and then a lower figure. Psychologically, that person is saving £100. That sounds much better than just saying, I found your quote for £150. So that's how you use positive price anchoring. So now, in that whole process, we found out the medical problems before underwriting. We then positioned it in such a way that, listen, it's going to be quite difficult, but I'm not going to stop until I find it. That's making it scarce, making it more desirable for the customer. Then we come back and say, I checked 15 places and I only found 2 or only found 4 that could offer terms, making it even more scarce and therefore more desirable for the customer. Then we tell him the highest price we found and then go, don't worry, I've managed to get you one at this price. And that is using positive price anchoring to show him how cheap you've got. You combine all those with a loaded premium and your success rate will go through the roof. Give it a go and let me know how you get on.